Human Capital Development for Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development in Africa. I'm sure you are all aware that this is the year of education, and it is all related with the topic that the Commissioner is going to be addressing us today. So what we will do is we will give the Commissioner a few minutes to give us his brief, after which we will then go into a question and answer session. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, the Director of Ceremony, and I greet all of you, the members of the media. I'm very, very happy to be with you this afternoon. And as indicated at the end of my briefing statement, I'm ready to take any questions from you. And if I find it difficult to answer, I'll be very honest and I'll say, I don't know. And when we look at the theme of the assembly for this year, and I'll quote it, educate an African fit for the 21st century. Building resilient education systems for increased access to inclusive and lifelong quality and relevant learning in Africa. End of quote. A number of issues come up before this theme. I will select a few. The first one is that the 21st century is characterized by digitalization and artificial intelligence, among other elements of technological development. And in this era, Africa must not be left behind. Secondly, in many countries of the global south, debt servicing obligations are higher than expenditures on education, health, and sanitation. And this is a factor that contributes to undermining the resilience of education systems in the countries of the global south. This challenge must be met so that we have got resilient education systems in our countries. Inclusivity in education is not assured for many people across Africa due to various circumstances. And again, this challenge must be met. And in the world of today, where change is the only constant, learning from the cradle to the grave is key to having a high quality of life. This means that lifelong learning is not a luxury, it's indispensable. And for children of today and tomorrow, education equips them employability, including self-employment, and this is of great relevance. And in addition, the quality of education in Africa must meet the minimum global standards if its relevance is to go beyond our borders in this world of interdependence. Countries will continue to depend on each other through migration, even as we undergo the disruption of global supply chains and the consequent fragmentation of international trade. Having unpacked the theme, the task now is to brief you on how the Department of Economic Development, Trade, Industry, and Minerals is contributing to this theme with a focus on human capital development. Let me begin by saying that the department has 2 directorates and 1 specialized agency. The directorates are economic development, integration, and trade on one hand, and industry, minerals, entrepreneurship, and tourism on the other hand. And the specialized agency is the African Minerals Development Center, or AMDC. I will do the briefing based on the broad themes of the departments as a whole with respect to human capital development. But before I do that, I will highlight a selection of important factors in socio-economic development related to human capital development. And these are the following. 15.8% of employees in Africa identify inadequate education of the workforce as a major constraint for their businesses. The issue of relevance comes into play here. In 2016, 45% of youth across Africa, or 10 African countries, felt their skills were inappropriate for their current work. Out of these, 17 felt that they were overskilled, and 28% felt that they were underskilled, while 38% indicated that the education was not useful in finding jobs. Again, the issue of relevance comes into play. Due to population growth and increasing life expectancy, Africa's work age population is growing faster than formal employment opportunities. Africa has the world's youngest population with a median age of 19 years, compared to 30 for Latin America and 31 for Asia and 42 for Europe. Longer life experiences and higher overall levels of educational attainment further increase the share of the population participating in the workforce. Yet, the demand for labor does not match the growing supply. In 2020, over 1 in every African youth were not in employment, they were not in education, and they were not under training. Workers in the informal employment sector are often undereducated, while social skill gaps are prevalent in formal labor markets. The share of informal employment is likely to remain larger than that of formal employment. The African continent has a higher share of informal employment than any other world region. In 2021, the share of on-account workers and contributing family members of the total population was 63.9%, compared to 33.9% for Latin America and the Caribbean, and 4.9% for developing Asia. Africa's productive transformation is increasing the demand for foundational, soft, and technical skills. However, Africa's productive transformation differs from the conventional growth patterns of developed countries or developing Asia. Unlike other world regions, Africa's structural transformation faces low productivity in the economic factors and these are not happened in other countries of the world. By 2022, manufacturing accounted for only 11.8% of Africa's GDP, compared to 20.5% in developing Asia. Manufacturing also employed about 8% of the continent's workforce, compared to 12% in developing Asia and as much as 19% in China. In contrast, most of Africa's labor force shifted from low productivity agriculture to services activities such as retail trade, often in the informal sector. Nevertheless, growth in sectors such as agro-industries and horticulture, ICT-based services, or tourism provide significant opportunities for job creation and product transformation. From this selected example, it's clear that African countries needed to devise skill development policies that include their entire populations and identify specific opportunities for productivity-oriented skill development. To this end, the rest of the briefing shows that what we are doing as a department to contribute to the theme. And the 4 broad themes that are covered here are the protocol related to free movement of people, right of residence, and right of establishment, as well as the issue of inclusive growth and sustainable development in Africa. The third one is on entrepreneurship, innovation, and digital transformation. And the last one is development of regional and continental value chains. With respect to the protocol on free movement of people, right of residence, and right of establishment, I can state that the primary advocates for this protocol in terms of signature and ratification are our sister departments. And these are the Health, Humanitarian Affairs, and Social Development Department on one hand, and the Department of Political Affairs, Peace, and Security. However, we've also joined in the advocacy because it is a key platform to creating an African customs union / common market. In this respect, we see strong harmonization of qualification frameworks and skill accreditation programs as being foundational to labor market integration across Africa as we move towards creating a single African market, starting with the African Continental Free Trade Area. Comparable qualification frameworks are key building blocks of labor market integration. Their absence, on the other hand, ushers in non-tariff barriers in the labor sector. In advocates for the signature of the ratification of the protocol on the free movement of people and right of establishment, we are also advocating for implementation of the African Union Continental Education Strategy for Africa, which is running from 2016 to next year. And this framework strategy stresses the need for continental qualification frameworks linked to regional and national qualifications frameworks to facilitate regional integration and mobility of graduates. We are fully aware that efforts towards harmonized qualification frameworks to facilitate quality assurance, skills accreditation, and credit transfer mechanism require sustained country engagement, capacity, and resources. We are, however, encouraged by the fact that existing regional qualifications frameworks spearheaded by economic communities such as ECOWAS, SADC, the East African Community, and IGAD, as well as non-governmental organizations such as the African Animal Gas Council for Higher Education and the Arab Network for Quality Assurance in Higher Education, have laid the groundwork for removing restrictions on intra-African mobility of skilled labor and creating comparable qualification frameworks that are moving us in the required direction. Now let me look at the theme of inclusive growth and sustainable development. The first aspiration of the African Union Agenda 2063, and I quote, is a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, end of quote. And one of the goals being followed under this theme is to have, and I quote, a well-educated citizenship or citizenry and skills revolution underpinned by science, technology, and innovation. In this respect, we are working in partnership with the African Development Bank and the other NEPAD on a study on key actions to achieve inclusive growth and sustainable development in Africa. The study is planned to be rolled out in July this year. Some of the key actions envisaged are human capital development to promote, among others, employability and productivity. Furthermore, we realize that inclusive growth and sustainable development are driven by, among others, savings and investments. In this connection, the study will also identify measures to raise rates of economic growth across Africa, to promote inclusiveness, higher rates of savings, and higher rates of investments. A related activity is formulation of a strategy on export development and diversification. We plan to roll out this study by the end of this year. The strategy is geared towards strengthening Africa's exports to the rest of the world. Currently, Africa's share of global trade is less than 2.8%, and this is an indicator of the low levels of productivity across our continent. Increasing Africa's share of global trade anchored on value-added products will generate savings in the form of foreign exchange earnings. Export development and diversification will greatly contribute to raising levels of savings and investments across Africa. We also have a program on enhancing capacities for domestic resource mobilization. Again, this can be a source of savings critical to investments in both human capital development and productive transformation. Now let me turn to the theme of entrepreneurship, innovation, and digital transformation. The Assembly of the African Union Heads of State and Government adopted the African Commodity Strategy in 2022. The strategy aims to promote value addition in the primary sectors of agriculture, mining, oil and gas, and energy. Fundamental, it also emphasized that value addition should be at the source. Skills development is key to promoting value addition. Let me briefly mention some of the activities that we're undertaking in this respect. We've partnered with the African Capacity Building Foundation to commission a study on the establishment of an African Manufacturing Institute. This will be key to rapid development of industrial skills across Africa at all levels of the industrial value chain. In addition, we've partnered with the African Business Council to promote skills development in the manufacture of jewelry. And again, in partnership with the Africa E-Trade Group, the Africa Export-Import Bank, and Google, we're implementing the African Youth Startup Program to promote entrepreneurship, innovation, and employment across Africa. As part of the process of implementing the theme of the year, we're also advocating that African countries increase investments in research and development to boost innovation, as well as provide affordable financing to African youth startup operators. Our department is also contributing to the implementation of the Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa, which runs from 2020 to 2030. The strategy aims at creating an integrated, inclusive African digital society and economy that improves the quality of life of its citizens. In 2022, member states validated the African Union e-commerce strategy, which sets the tone for digital trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area. In addition, the department is doing a mapping exercise of e-commerce programs at regional levels in anticipation of the development of the roadmaps and guidelines. In line with the Education to Education, the African Minerals Development Center will be initiating sensitization programs for the African Green Minerals Strategy when it is adopted by the African Union policy organs this year. This strategy aims to leverage Africa's comparative advantage in strategic green minerals and renewable energy potentials. Through these programs, our aim is to raise awareness and cultivate consensus among stakeholders regarding the importance of sustainable mineral resource management and value addition. In addition, the African Minerals Development Center will be conducting online courses on tenets of the African Mining Vision, specifically focusing on the African minerals and energy resource classification and management system, and the Pan-African Resource Reporting Code. These courses aim to educate the youth and industry players on the correlation between value addition, wealth creation, and mineral resources, as well as classification. Furthermore, work is underway to support and expand initiatives of electrical vehicle and battery manufacturing, emphasizing the importance of retaining value addition within the continent. In this regard, the African Minerals Development Center, in a partnership with African institutions, is supporting initiatives such as the establishment of a Center of Excellence for Advanced Battery Research and in Lubumbashi, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The African Minerals Development Center is also partnering with the Pan-African Decarbonization Institute to promote leadership in the decarbonization value chain. It will contribute to the development of an industry anchored on research in the development of the whole value chain, transforming energy systems and sectors globally, as well as ensure economic returns from the process. The last theme is on development of regional and continental value chain. In this theme, The department, in collaboration with the International Trade Center, launched the Value Chain Diagnostic Study to identify sectors with high potential for sustainable value chain development in Africa and the bottlenecks preventing businesses from realizing this potential. The study mapped 5,300 products as inputs or outputs and identified 415 continental value chains. In the context of the study, instead of importing rubber from Thailand for automotive industry, for example, the business community in Africa can source that from the Democratic Republic of Congo or Cameroon. This brings me to the next point, and that is that the regional skills development programs are required to facilitate skills development in the development of regional and continental value chains. As I move towards concluding, let me say that we join our sister Department of Education, Science and Technology and Innovation in advocating for increased investments in education and training programs related to our portfolio in order to increase investments in research and development, skills development, global market access, as well position Africa to succeed in both the green transition and the fourth industrial revolution. This is where I end. I thank you for your kind attention. I did not see anybody sleeping, and I'm ready to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for that enlightening brief, which I think covered quite comprehensively the work that your department has done and is doing and will continue to do in terms of making sure that we have sustainable human capital development to drive the growth of the African continent. Okay, so now we are at that point where we have the question and answer section. So as usual, we will start with a round of questions, and you indicate your intention to ask a question by raising your hand. And if you are asked to speak, please introduce your name and your news organization, and then give your question. I see we're already having hands starting up. There's one here and one here. Let's start with you two gentlemen. Please, go ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Ermias Mugasho. I am from EBS TV. And I have three questions, actually two. The first one is Mr. Ambassador. Okay.
You can introduce yourself again. The interpreters were not hearing you.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ermias Mugasho. I am from EBS TV. I have two questions. The first question is about the this year's theme about education. And Mr. Ambassador, if you tell us why AUC picked education as a theme of, you tell us the rationale behind picking theme. And if you could please shed some light on the challenges of education. And my second question is based on the speech by our Minister of Foreign Affairs at the opening of the Executive Council Summit. In his speech, our Foreign Minister requested Amharic to be included among official languages of African Union as an official from the AU Commission. Happy if you could tell us what will be the process, how much time to include Amharic AU.
Thank you very much. My name is Henok Tasfai from CCTV. How do you evaluate the focus of African countries toward education? Don't you think that African Union should impose positive pressure toward member states to allocate more budget for education and China media? How do you evaluate the trade and the investment relation between African countries and China over the first decade of agenda? And in what way should it?
Very good. My name is Haptamu from Chinese Xinhua News Agency. I have a couple of questions. First is on human capital development is one of the areas where China, Africa, and the African Union work together. And in this regard, I would like to know how do you evaluate this cooperation? So, how significant is further strengthen this cooperation? I mean, statement you mentioned that there is a mismatch between education sector and employment sector. So how, in what possible ways that we can at least manage this mismatch?
Let me answer
Thank you very much. Commissioner will answer those questions from the three colleagues.
The first question that you raised, you look at the theme, which I indicated. I read it through the theme, and I'll read it again. It says, educate an African fit for the 21st century. So that is our task. We need to educate an African fit for the 21st century. And I indicated some of the key developments, technological issues coming up. Digital transformation, artificial intelligence. Our people should be ready for that process. And we need to have resilient education systems. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, it had the adverse impacts on both the health and education systems. That should not happen in the future. They should be strong, and there should be buffers to ensure that even in the face of future pandemics, our health systems will continue functioning, our education systems are going to continue functioning. And the next issue is inclusivity. Nobody must be left behind. Our children whose parents do not have income should go to school. And if you listen to the statement by the Foreign Minister of Ethiopia, they've got a school feeding program. And that has significantly raised the quality of education in the country. So it should be inclusive. Nobody should be left behind. And it should be a long life process, because change is always happening. You need to adapt. You learn and learn, you learn and learn. That's the nature of society that is going to come about. And it should be relevant. Today we've got the master's students, they are graduates. We've got the PhD graduates who cannot find employment because their training is not aligned to the needs of the business sector. So we need to involve the business sector in this process. And hence the importance of STEM education: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So this is how we decided to come up on this theme, so that we meet all these challenges. The issue of America, unfortunately, I cannot answer that question, because we have got different divisions in the AU. I'm leading the Department of Economic Development, Trade, Tourism, Industry, and Minerals. I don't know the processes, but my colleagues who are involved in the issues of protocol, issues of language, they are the ones who are best placed to answer this question. Yes, the second question, we need to allocate more to education. And for us to allocate more to education, we need to grow the African economy. We need to diversify exports. We need to strengthen the tax administrations so that we are able to collect all the tax revenues. And in this way, we will be able to increase allocations towards education. China and Africa are cooperating very, very well. We have continuous engagement. We are discussing, and there are frameworks for collaboration. And when the president of China met the chairpersons of regional economic communities on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Johannesburg in August last year, I attended that summit on behalf of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, emphasized on key strategic approaches in the future: investment, human capital development, and agriculture modernization. So we are going to be cooperating in those areas. And this is also related to the third question. And the second question also relates to what I emphasize, the need for STEM education. Without science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we shall not have Africans who are educated enough to be fit for the 21st century. They should be, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We are back for a second round. If there are any more requests for the floor, I see the gentleman to my left and another one to my right. May I also encourage the women journalists to please also field their questions, to feel free to do that. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Michael from the SABC's Channel Africa in South Africa. Commissioner, the African Community of Experts in Rights and Welfare of Children, in November 2023, released a report that about 35 million children are without parental care, which is also something that paints a big future for Africa. This study was conducted in about 43 countries, and it shows that they are vulnerable to a lot of bad things that happen in Africa, like trafficking, sexual exploitation, child labor, where now it's driving them from education. What is the EU going to do with we're sitting with this report? It was called a groundbreaking report.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what is the EU going to do within its framework to assist in this case? The other thing is that they also propose that governments are not doing enough in partnering with the private sector, whereby education has become too commercialized. It's not affordable for everybody. How can we make sure, I mean, as the AU, to make education accessible to people that cannot afford? Thank you so much.
There was a hand this side.
Thank you. My name is Andres from Ethiopian Press Agency. I have one question. Mr. Commissioner, as you are Commissioner of Economic Affairs, I have a question on the budget allocation.
Budget allocation.
Oh yes, because the budget allocation of the Union has been under questionable because AU has not fulfilled or has not been covered its budget by itself. So the question is when the AU will cover its budget by itself or from its member countries.
Okay.
Okay, over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I'll start with your last question. We're undergoing the institutional reform process, which started in 2017, and the champion is going to give his report during the assembly. And one of the early steps taken was that when it comes to the program budget, 75% of the program budget should be financed by the African Union member states themselves, and we are moving in that direction. And when it comes to human resources, employment of people, that is fundamentally caused by the member states. They fund our emoluments as employees of the African Union. The next question about the 35 million children who are left behind. The first step is the family level. We should encourage families in Africa to really look after each other. In any family, you find delinquent members of the family. So the others who are responsible and have the capacities must be able to step in if both mother and father feel their parental responsibilities. They should be able to step in and assist the children. That's a message that needs to be conveyed. And after that, we've got the community level. And at the community level, there are quite a number of possibilities. I'll give an example of the government of Zambia. They've got what they call the Constituency Development Fund, where each constituency is given an equal allocation. So the community can make use of that fund to say a portion of it should be devoted to training the vulnerable members of our society. Because the child who is underprivileged today can be the future president of the country. They've got talent. We should not undermine that talent. Then at the national level, it's becoming very, very, very clear that governments cannot run away from free education, especially the 12 years of education. All governments across Africa must endeavor to move in that direction. And the key to that is back to what I said, savings. We need to grow the economies to such a level that we generate enough savings to allocate it towards free education. That is very, 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 very important. And a number of countries around the world have free education programs, and they're doing it very, very well. So we must move in that direction. Then the issue of commercialization of education, it comes back to the role of governments. If governments increase allocations towards public education, then you find that the private sector will not come up with the monopolistic prices. They're coming up with the monopolistic prices because they see a gap. And again, let me come back to the issue of public education. If a government does not increase public education, you are going to increase inequalities. Because the well-to-do families will be able to educate their children. And those who are not well-to-do will not be educated. And when they leave school, those who are well-educated are going to get better jobs. Those who are not well-educated are not going to get better jobs. And there's going to be inequality. And the question of inclusiveness comes into the play, and hence the theme. So public education, very good standards of public education are key to promoting social equality across societies. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more hands going up, so I take it that this concludes our briefing, our very first briefing for this 37th summit. So it is my honor to thank His Excellency Ambassador Albert Muchanga, who is the Commissioner for Economic Development, Tourism, Trade, Industry, and Mining, and also to thank you, members from the media and other content creators who attended this press briefing, and for your very rich questions that you put forward to the Commissioner. So we will meet again in the afternoon because the press conference series continues. Please check with our media center to get updates of the next and upcoming press briefings. Thank you very much, and bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.